Police are investigating an overnight break-in at the Platte City High School. A St. Joseph man gets caught with meth while he was already being booked in jail on a completely different case. A Kansas City man is calling on the Vatican to remove the head of the Kansas City St. Joseph Diocese. I continue to update you on breaking news we've gotten out of Springfield within the last 10 minutes or so. According to a missing girl's family, the body of 10-year-old Haley Owens has been found. Members and 2 passengers were injured when a United Airlines flight encountered severe turbulence. A former top political advisor to New Jersey Governor Chris Christie says he will not comply with a subpoena from the state legislative committee that's investigating the George Washington Bridge scandal. A St. Joseph-based technical school is graduating to the next level, becoming a university, and it's just the beginning of some big changes. An open forum is scheduled for this week in Maryville to discuss changes to the town's liquor laws. A medical examiner has ruled that the injuries that 3-month-old sustained were not life-threatening. He's expected to be okay. Let's say I'm a hacker. If I created a Wi-Fi hotspot in any public place that's unsecured, and then you logged into it with your laptop, whether it's email passwords, credit card numbers, any important documents saved in your computer, I suddenly have access to it all. The problem is not in the newer model Jeeps. Those all have gas tanks on the side of the vehicle, and those are fine. The problem is in older model Jeeps where the gas tank is in the back bumper. Suspicious activity in a local motel parking lot, and now 2 people are under arrest for illegal drugs. More than 6,200 families in the city of St. Joseph utilize food stamps. If they lose that assistance, they lose the ability to shop inside a grocery store aisle. But it creates a bigger problem, and not just for food banks. Bob Ira Glazer first came to Wireco as a consultant back in 2001. He eventually worked his way up to CEO, and he is the man who was hired to rescue the company. The Maryville rape case has garnered a lot of attention publicly. The fact is, the issue is a lot bigger. I'm standing in front of 541 flags. Each flag represents one woman or child the YWCA in St. Joseph served last year. But even if the initial tuition is paid for in full by the time a college student arrives on campus, it's the extra fees that can get them into trouble, especially textbooks. It's not long before the price of those can force a college kid to feel like they're buried underneath it all. Personal drones can fly several hundred feet up into the air. They have standard definition and full HD cameras depending on the product you buy. They've attracted the attention of hobbyists, but also the attention of lawmakers. A lot of Catholics around the region heard that this had been something people were aware of since December. Today they're hearing that it's something people have been aware of since May. Why should they believe you this time?
I can't get in people's mind and heart at this moment to particularly answer that.
A sense of relief went through my mind.
For John David Cousins, Thursday's trial of Bishop Robert Finn brings back a flood of emotions. Last year, when the Sean Radigan story broke, he received a phone call from a friend whose 4-year-old daughter was a victim of Radigan. That phone call would have been painful enough, but then his own memories flooded back to his mind. That's because John David Cousins is also a sexual abuse victim.
Knowing what happened to me and what I went through, even though I don't recall any pictures being taken, but just knowing what was there and the sickness of it, it just got my mind turning.
Cousins says he was one of 4 kids molested by a Kansas City Monsignor. He was 9 years old when the abuse began. It would continue for 5 years. The other 3 boys have all died, one from suicide. Cousins is 42 now. He's the father of a 3-year-old. But that phone call last year brought childhood horrors back to life.
It's a daily battle, especially for not dealing with it for 30 years, you know, being forgotten, and then all of a sudden you wake up and you've got a life that was just treacherous to deal with. As a 42-year-old man, I'm dealing with it as a 9-year-old kid.
Cousins says he doesn't want this to be seen as a crusade against the Catholic Church. He just wants justice for victims.
It is about a man who did wrong, and a man who did wrong with no accountability.
In Kansas City, Greg Miller, Fox 26, KNPN. It goes without saying, kids can learn a lot from a soldier.
I was excited that I finally got to meet him.
But that soldier would say he learned a lot from these kids.
You know, it's an amazing thing to be in a hospital and the situation I was in and receive the support and the letters and the the love coming from people, honestly, I've never met before.
First Lieutenant Jason Church has made remarkable progress since his life completely changed last August. He was a platoon leader on a daily patrol on the front lines. His troops had just cleared a route for engineers.
As I was walking toward the village, a few red flags came up. I saw that there was no villagers out, which usually means the area's abandoned. There was no footprints anywhere, and there was rock formations signaling to the locals from the Taliban that not to go in that area.
One of his soldiers stepped on an IED. It malfunctioned, but in the process of finding a different route to go back, his world went dark.
As I came to, the dust and all that stuff was up in the air, and I heard my men screaming and things like that, and I came to realize that the legs I stood on for 23 years were no longer there.
He's been recovering at Walter Reed Medical Center ever since, but a big part of that recovery came from his aunt, a reading teacher at Noyes Elementary School. Students began writing letters, sending care packages, and putting a quilt together. It became a real-life lesson in patriotism and support.
A lot of these students didn't know anybody that had a serviceman or a servicewoman that was injured or involved in service, and so this was a connection through me. This was a connection for them to make.
One of those students affected the most was second grader Anna Case.
I kind of felt sad, and then I decided to pray for him.
I am a man of faith, and there's a reason, though, even though that I often tell people that, even though I've had my legs taken away from me, God's given me a platform to stand on. I don't look at this as so much of a disability as much as it's enabled me to do things.
So Lieutenant Church spent the day talking to these kids about tolerance, being fair to others, and emphasizing how important their support was to him personally. And apparently that message was well received, not just by students. Greg Miller, Fox 26, KNPN.